On this edition of the Nesson College Hockey Podcast, we'll give you our 3 stars of the week in Hockey East, preview a big weekend on the Nesson Networks, and speak with BC captain David Cotton. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Nesson College Hockey Podcast. I'm Dakota Randall, alongside always Pat McAvoy. Patrick, how are you? How was your holiday break?
I'm good. It was good to get away for a few days, see some family.
Cool.
Now it's New Year, so who knows what's going to happen, but...
Did you get anything good for Christmas?
Got some golf
Nobody
stuff.
cares. All right,
Okay.
we got a great show for you today. A lot of interesting results across the country, particularly in Hockey East. Decent shakeup in the national polls, as always. There are plenty of games this weekend, also worth keeping an eye on. We also have an interview with Boston College captain David Cotton, who is having a tremendous season for the Eagles. Patrick, you did that interview, so
Big
we're
time
looking
guy.
forward to that.
Big time player, nice guy.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, I want to get into the Nesson schedule. We got a loaded weekend for you. It all starts Friday with women's hockey, Union at Harvard at 6 p.m. on Nesson Plus.
Wow.
Then men's hockey the rest of the way, Yale at New Hampshire at 7 p.m. on Nesson. That's also on Friday. Also on Friday, number 9 UMass at number 7 Denver. That's a great game. It's at 9 p.m. on Nesson Plus. Then Saturday, as part of our Super Saturday on the Nesson Networks, ton of college games, including college hockey, Vermont at number 5 Boston College. That's at 4:30 p.m. on Nesson. And then Brown at UNH at 7 p.m. on Nesson. No college hockey for you on Sunday, but we come back Monday with Bentley at number 12 Northeastern at 7 p.m. on Nesson. You remember that all of our hockey's coverage is brought to you by Rockland Trust, where each relationship matters. So we got a lot of games this weekend to get to, a lot of stuff to cover. But as always, we want to start with our Hockey East 3 stars. So I'll start. Number 1 star of the week for me, and it was kind of a weird week. A lot of exhibition games, sort of weird tournaments, not a lot of teams in action. Some teams haven't played in a couple weeks. So we did the best we could. There still were some notable performances. So number 1 star, Vermont senior goalie Stefanos Lekas. I've never been able to pronounce it right, but I believe it's Stefanos Lekas. The senior had back-to-back shutouts over Union and Lake Superior State. He stopped all 31 shots against Lake Superior in the Catamount Cup finale to win tournament MVP honors. Obviously, kind of been a tough season for Vermont, but they had a good weekend, and Stefano Lekas was exceptional in net, so he is our number 1 star of the week in Hockey East.
True. Shout out to Vermont.
Shout out Vermont, yeah.
So for our next star of the week, we have Patrick Shea, my namesake, senior forward for Maine. He had 2 goals and assists in Maine's 5-1 win over American International. Maine, we've talked about them endlessly on this podcast. They're a good team. They're not even sneaky good anymore. They're a good team. And Shea has been right there in the middle of it all season, kind of helping the team chug along.
Yeah, good weekend for him. And Maine keeps having a strong season. Number 3 star, Providence goalie Michael Lackey stopped 58 of 60 shots as the Friars went 1-0-1 at the Catamount Cup. Lackey made 30 saves in Providence's 2-1 overtime win over Lake Superior and stopped 28 shots in a 1-1 tie with Union. So, good weekend for Providence goalie Michael Lackey. So now we're going to look back on some of the games over the past week. I know, Pat, you had a couple in particular that you took interest in.
Yes. Right when I saw them, I've been itching to talk about them on the podcast. Arizona State versus Harvard. Harvard's a team that I've been all in on this season. They started 6-0. They're scoring 5 goals a game. And you know what? I thought they were going to win the whole thing, which maybe they still will. Who knows?
It's an aggressive prediction,
I'm
listening.
That's just what I felt in my heart. And you know what? They've been struggling lately. Now I believe they are 7-4, so they're 1-4 in their last 5, with the most recent being in a tie, so 7-4-1. Most recent game coming against Arizona State, they tied 4-4. It just wasn't their best performance. Offense was there, defense really wasn't, and you know I'm confused. I'm confused by them right now. That's the best way I can put it.
All right, we don't like confusion.
No. And then so the other games I was looking at was UConn versus St. Lawrence, and then Dartmouth in the Ledyard Classic, because obviously we spoke about UConn not quite frequently. We spoke about them a lot last episode.
Well, we had an interview with their head coach.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. I was rooting for them. I was pulling from hardcore. And they entered the Ledyard Classic riding a 4-game winning streak, and that's where it ended. It ended at 4. Because they tied St. Lawrence 2-2. Wyatt Newpower and Alex Palyusov scored the 2 goals for UConn. And so that's a tough team. It's a tough St. Lawrence squad. Good 2-2 tie. Then they fell to Dartmouth the next day, 4-3. Ruslan Ishakov and Carter Turnbull scored for UConn. But so all in all, in reality, when you look at the results from the two games, I think it was a solid weekend of hockey for UConn. They had the 4-game win streak. I wish I could have seen it go a little bit further. But, I mean, 2-2 and 4-3, that's 2 good games.
Yeah, not a terrible weekend for UConn, but nonetheless a little bit of a coming back down to earth moment for them, even though they had their 4 straight wins were kind of against weak competition. But nevertheless, I think they've surprised a lot of people.
Facts.
They easily could factor into the postseason, so we'll have to see what the Huskies do the rest of the way. A few other notable games from across the country. Minnesota State, number 3 team in the country, loses 7-2 to St. Cloud State in a bit of a stunner. Then the next night they won 2-0 over Bemidji State. That was in I forget what the name of it was, Minnesota Classic or something. Minnesota teams in Minnesota. So, you can kind of write it off to a lot of these teams play each other a lot and they know each other well. But still, losing 7-2 for a team as good as Minnesota State is a little alarming, but maybe they just had a bad weekend. Who knows?
It's a punch in the chin is what that is.
It is a punch in the chin. Minnesota Duluth, rather, beats Merrimack 4-1 and then 5-1. We talked about how Merrimack has had some strong results against some of the better teams in the country this season. Merrimack, listen, isn't a very good team. They're not going to do anything in the postseason, but they have played. They've played up to their competition, I would say, on multiple occasions. So we thought maybe there was a way for them to steal at least a tie in this, but that did not happen. Minnesota Duluth asserted its dominance. It's been an up and down year for the 2-time defending champions, but they looked great this weekend. Back-to-back blowout wins over Merrimack.
They very much did.
UNH loses 5-4 to Army. At this point, the Wildcats are what they are. I think this says more about Army. They are now number 20th in the country. We'll get to the polls in a second, but Army is a team to be reckoned with. They're not a powerhouse by any means, but they are a good, a sneaky good program that's worth watching if you get a chance. They play an entertaining brand of hockey, a lot of offense, good stuff from the Minutemen. What else do I have? Miami upsets Bowling Green. Just a regular, I thought it was.
Happy to see it.
Bowling Green has had some really big wins this season, and this was not one of their better performances.
I'm happy to see that. I root for an upset literally every single game. So I'm glad to see one panned out.
Yeah, Miami they're not as good this year as they have been in years past, but it's a good victory for them nonetheless.
True.
Okay, before we get to our interview with David Cotton, we're going to go over the national polls. Starts number 1 North Dakota. I forget who they played. They played in some exhibition, I think, like a U18 team or something, and they won. Regardless, they stay at number 1. Followed by Cornell, Minnesota State, Clarkson, Boston College, Ohio State, Denver, Penn State, UMass, Minnesota Duluth, Bowling Green at number 11, and the number 12 Northeastern, and UMass Lowell, Providence, Notre Dame, Harvard, Arizona State, Michigan State, Western Michigan, and the aforementioned Army.
True.
So a little bit of a shakeup. Pat, do you have any takeaways from the polls this week?
Nothing crazy this week. There were no drops further than 1. Minnesota State, Providence, Northeast. No, not that one. Minnesota State and Providence went from Minnesota State 2-3, Providence 14-13. You mentioned Minnesota State's questionable loss, 7-2. Providence, actually, they beat Lake Superior State, and then they tied Union. They fell 1 spot, but so nothing really to see there. That's nothing crazy. And then same thing on the riser side, nothing more than 1. Cornell went from 3-2 after beating Harvard, but then they also lost to Dartmouth, but they still rose. North Dakota up to 2 from 3 after sweeping Western Michigan. Nothing crazy really. Just a couple 1-spot risers.
Nothing. Like I said, nothing too crazy, but interesting to see the Minnesota State loss. I think was kind of the real sort of eye opener from the weekend, and they only dropped 1 spot, so I think people voting kind of realized, hey, it's just kind of a bad weekend. So nothing too wild. All right, so now let's get to our interview with David Cotton. Listen, he's had a great year. The seniors tied for the team lead with 8 goals and leads the Eagles with 22 points. BC kind of got off to an up and down start. We've talked about it a lot. But now the Eagles have won 9 games in a row. They've been off since December 8th, though, so it'll be interesting to see if they're rusty when they get back on the ice this weekend against Vermont. In a game you can watch on Nesson. So, Pat, you interviewed David. Any sort of takeaways from it before we get to the interview?
He's a very humble guy, so one thing I tried to ask him about towards the end of the interview, just to listen to the whole thing so you can get to this part, but I asked him about, so he's an NHL draft pick. He got taken by the Carolina Hurricanes, I believe. And so I kind of asked him about that, especially being a senior, like what's next for him. and he kind of, I don't want to say boxed at that question, but so when I asked him that question, he said that he felt that it was disrespectful to even like think that far ahead because he wants to think about his teammates and his coaches and stuff like that, and he wants to be like in the here and now. So I thought that was really cool. But obviously, like you just mentioned, he's got some great stats. He just recorded his 50th goal and 100th point of his career at BC. Not many people have done that, so very, very talented player. But he also seems like a genuinely good guy and good teammate to have around that team.
Yeah, agreed. So without any further ado, let's get to our interview with Boston College captain David Cotton.
I'm here with Boston College captain David Cotton. To go right to it, David, after starting the season off 2-4, you guys have completely turned it around and have rattled off 9 straight wins and currently sit at number 5 in the national polls. In your eyes, what has changed?
I think the biggest message that we had in the locker room was more just stay with what we're doing. Just trust the process and don't hit the panic button. It's 6 games into the season. You can't win trophies in October and November. So just make sure you come into practice every day, ready to work, ready to get better. And I think that's what we've done, and it's really taken off since then.
Absolutely. And then so now to you specifically as well. So as captain of the team, once you guys did have that start and you had that early 4-game losing streak, how did you go about keeping everybody set up and getting everybody on the same page?
Well, I think what's different about this team than what we've had in the past is we have a ton of senior leadership. Yeah, myself and Graham McPhee wear letters, but our team this year is incredibly accountable. We hold each other to a high standard and hold ourselves to a high standard. So I think there's a lot of trust in that locker room. If someone's kind of slipping, there's going to be guys that are going to help them get back on track. And I think that's what's really helped us this year is, everyone's kind of bought in, everyone's on the same program. So it's definitely not all falling on my shoulders or Graham's shoulders. It's been a complete team effort, and I think that's a huge part of why we've had success early on.
Absolutely, and it seems to be working right now at least. So now to keep going, continue along. So as a whole, so right now you are 15 games into the season. How would you describe, in your words, this season so far, after being a part of the program for 3 other seasons? So how would you describe this specific season so far?
I would say it's a long time coming. We've had our struggles early on in the past couple years, but this is the seniors last year. We haven't made the national tournament. We haven't won a bean pot. We haven't won a Hockey East title. So I think this is kind of like a redemption tour for a lot of the senior classmen right now. We realize this is our last go at it, so we're kind of just putting it all out there, giving it our best shot, and so far it's gone well. But the second half is trophy season, so we just gotta take it one game at a time and keep the role that we've been on.
I'm glad you mentioned the bean pop because that actually kind of segues into my next question because so I know it's coming up. And so last year it didn't go the way you wanted to, but so what does the bean mean to you guys as a team? Like how do you guys get up for a tournament like that, as well as I guess this is an easy question, but so what do you hope to get out of this tournament as it's your last one?
There's a couple different ways you can interpret it. There's obviously the bragging rights. It's a pride thing between all the Boston schools. You want to be, titled as best team in Boston, and that's a good way to kind of get the rivalry juices going. And it's also your first taste at a championship. It's if you have like this year, we haven't done a holiday tournament, so it's our first shot at a trophy. And that's one of our goals in the season is to win the pot. So it's really important to us. It's a 2-game series, so 2 weeks, 2 Mondays. So it's really important to us. We haven't won it. We've come close past couple years, but it really hasn't gone our way. But it's definitely in our sights, and something that we really pride ourselves on.
Absolutely. And so you kind of just segued me again. So you mentioned how the bean pot is one of your team's goals. So my question to you right now is, so aside from the Beanpot, what are your team's goals moving forward right now?
Well, I would say just the three tournaments. You know, you want to win the three tournaments. You want to win the Beanpot. You want to win the Hockey East Championship, and you want to go on to regionals and make a run at the national title. So, you know, it's definitely we have our sights on the trophies, but it's one of those things where you can't really look too far ahead, because once you do that, you kind of get, you know, blinded by what's happening right now. So we understand what is at stake and what's in the future, but at the same time, we've been able to take it one game at a time, one practice at a time, and I think that's, you know, one of those things that you have to always keep in perspective, because once you look ahead too far, and you just kind of get lost in the present. So, you know, we definitely do have our team goals, but again, like I said before, we have a lot of team ownership and accountability, so we're able to kind of keep ourselves in check.
Absolutely. So now to turn to you specifically. So, captain, senior, I noticed that recently you notched your 50th career goal and 100th career point. So I wanted to ask, what do those numbers mean to you?
For me, I think it's, you know, it's an honor. It's an accolade that not too many people have hit, but it's honestly, when those things happened, I kind of didn't realize it happened. And I've been fortunate enough to play with great players. I've been alongside Julius Mottula and Logan Hutzko for the past couple of years, and those are two incredibly talented and special players in their own right. So, you know, I've been fortunate to be able to play with talented guys like that, and they're able to make their plays and get some goals and make some great passes to me. So, I've been very fortunate.
Absolutely. So now to continue along, so what has BC meant to you over these last few years, both personally as well as hockey-wise?
I mean, it's been everything. It's one of those institutions that it's incredibly well-rounded, between the athletic excellence and the academic excellence. You know, we always have alumni and people coming back to the locker room always telling us like how it was the best days of their lives, and to enjoy it. And there's an incredible network that they have that's really close in the locker room. So it's meant everything to me. It's given me, you know, confidence between the coaching staff and the players. It's allowed me to see incredible talent come through. A lot of NHL guys that are playing right now, and a lot of guys that will play in the NHL. So being able to play alongside those guys it's an honor.
Absolutely. Seems pretty sweet. And so this is for my last question. You can answer this any way you want, but so roughly halfway through the season, so you have roughly one half of the season remaining in senior year, and then you got the rest of the school year and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask, what are your personal goals for the rest of the season, as well as like what are you hoping to do beyond? I know you got selected by the Carolina Hurricanes in 2015, so that's obviously exciting with school winding down. But so what are your hopes for the rest of the season and beyond?
Honestly, I've tried to kind of keep my scope in on and more of the short term. I know the first half was kind of establishing ourselves as a team and getting off to a good start, and I think we've done that. We struggled out of conference, and we've kind of tackled that bear the past couple games. We've come up with some big out of conference wins, and you know, for the second half, like I said before, it's a lot of just kind of taking it a game at a time and really kind of focusing on those three trophies that we're chasing. And you know, if something comes up after the season that I'll have an opportunity to play elsewhere, I think that's a decision I'll be able to make after the season. But I don't think it'd be fair to my coaches, my teammates, or myself to kind of put that in the back of my head right now.
Absolutely.
I think right now it's more about just being a good leader, a good captain, and a good teammate, and just trying to give it the best run that we have.
Absolutely. David, I appreciate your time today. I wish you good luck going forward. Good luck with those 3 tournaments you mentioned, and have a good holiday. Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we're back. I want to thank BC captain David Cotton again for taking the time to speak with us. Like, my takeaway was the same as yours. Seems like a really humble guy.
Yeah.
No surprise that he's the captain of the Eagles. And again, he's had a great season, and I expect that to continue. The Eagles have a great team, and we'll probably be hearing a lot of him and of BC going forward.
9 in a row. They haven't lost since Jerry York was inducted into the Hall of Fame. They
Right.
still got that York bump.
Yeah, we got the podcast bump too.
That's a fact.
So yeah, and then they'll look to make it 10 in a row this weekend against Vermont. Speaking of that, let's get into the schedule one more time. We have a big weekend for you. It all starts Friday with women's hockey, Union at Harvard. It's at 6 p.m. on Nesson Plus. Then men's hockey the rest of the way, Yale at New Hampshire at 7 p.m. on Nesson. Also on Friday, number 9 UMass at number 7 Denver at 9 p.m. on Nesson Plus. That's a great game. Saturday is part of our Super Saturday. A lot of college sports action on the Nesson networks, including Vermont at number 5 Boston College at 4:30 p.m. on Nesson, and Brown at UNH at 7 p.m. on Nesson. And we have nothing on Sunday, but we finish off Monday with Bentley at number 12 at Northeastern, and that's at 7 p.m. on Nesson. So a loaded schedule for you. I'm looking forward to it. We don't have a lot of time left, so I just want to kind of go through a couple games that I'm looking forward to. Harvard taking on Quinnipiac. 2 good teams that I think kind of need to get on a roll here as we get towards the middle, to late part of the season. Quinnipiac hasn't been as good this year as many people expected. Harvard has kind of come back down to earth after a hot start. But, I still think they're a great team. So I just think these are 2 teams that kind of could use a win this weekend to kind of springboard a nice little roll here as we get towards the end of the season.
I agree.
UConn against Northeastern. Big opportunity for the Huskies, meaning the UConn Huskies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cheesy. Northeastern, we know what they are. They're a great team, but I think this is a chance for UConn to make a statement win, also sort of solidify themselves, or, give them, rise, however you want to put it, in the hockey standings, looking to sort of solidify their position as a postseason team. Providence and Army. Don't sleep on Army. That's kind of my takeaway. They're number 20 in the country. Providence is, I forget, number 14, I think. So this is a good game on paper. 2 good teams. Providence, they may be number 14th, and they've had a few losses here and there, but they remain one of the more talented teams in the country. And Army, again, they play an entertaining brand of hockey, and I think that could be a great game. Alaska and Minnesota State. Upset alert.
Oh, yeah.
Alaska, just wouldn't shock me if they pull one out there. And then UMass at Denver for that 2-game series, one of those games you can see on Nesson. Just 2 great teams, speaks for itself, 2 of the best programs in the country. Could be a national championship preview, you never know. So I am very much looking forward to that. Anything else you want to add, Pat?
I'm excited.
You're excited.
You
Good.
mentioned UConn and Northeastern. I'm pulling for UConn. I have to.
Pulling for UConn?
And then Harvard. God, come on. I want them to get back in the saddle, as some would say. Get back on, and then Boston College. I need them. I want a couple more wins out of them.
Yeah, well, listen, we'll recap those games and many others, and give you all of our thoughts and analysis, and whatever else happens in the week of college hockey next week rather, for our, I think it might be our 13th episode. I'm not sure. Regardless.
What a transition.
Yeah, what a transition. Regardless, thanks for listening, everybody. And we will see you next week with another episode of the Nesson College Hockey Podcast. I'm Dakota Randall, again, with Pat McAvoy.
Yep.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Have a good one.